Thank you for subscribing to the channel, and for all of you that haven't subscribed yet, only take you a second and it'd be much appreciated. Thank you. Now what we're looking at today is the second part of our creating a book tutorial in Canva. And that's in, if you like, a long form book, maybe a novel or a non-fiction book. And we're talking thousands and thousands of words. We're using the rulers, we're using the guides, and we're using all kinds of little extras to help you format your book. Right, so what you need to do first is you need to go to your folder, which we created in the last video, and there's a link in the description for the last video if you haven't, if you've only just come across this video and you want to see the first part. You want to open the first chapter that we did in the intro to the, or the preface if you like, to the book, and you want to open the second one we did, which was the copy of the first one, and we're going to work with that today. Right, so here was the first one we did. We've got the images, everything's in place, left and right margins are in place, we removed all the borders, and we saved it. We then created the second one. We made a copy of this first one with all the borders in it, and that's the one you're going to be working with, so we'll open that. The first thing you do is you take everything out of the boxes that you don't need. Leave all the grey margins and all the grey boxes, leave all that, leave your headers and your footers, your page numbers, leave all that, so you're left with these clean boxes. This will be the start of chapter 2. Depending on how long your chapter is, we'll just sort of add pages as we go. Now what I've also done is I've created a little box, and it's just a little idea I had for those that are struggling to keep their paragraphs even, the spaces between them. If indeed you've got spaces between them. A lot of people don't like spaces between them and just run from each paragraph to the next, the line spacing the same as in the paragraphs. Now as you can see, the gutter margin is on the left hand side of the first page. If it's not, and you've got something like, let's just delete that for a second, and this is where you are, it shouldn't be, but this may be where you are, and your gutter margin is on the right hand side, then just delete that so that your gutter margin is on the left. Your first page with your gutter margin is on the left. We always start a chapter, or most people start the chapter on the right hand side of the page. It's just the way we open the book. Now, because we're starting a new chapter, chapter 2, and this is just basically from here on out, you can just keep going and going and going until you've completed your book. So let's say, for instance, your first page looks like this, because on the first page of our original one, there was no borders, no headers, no footers. So without that, it's just basically blank, other than for having these borders round. So if that's the case, and you want to start your first chapter, we will copy from a page with the broader margin, or the gutter margin, on the left of the page, the box with the page numbering in. We will go back to the top and paste it. And where did we finish off last time? 6, on page 6. So now this one, the first page of chapter 2, will be 7. Right, okay, we'll also copy this grey box here, and we'll put that there. It's just to separate the text. We're not going to have a header in this because it's the chapter title. We go back to our original, we go to the first chapter, chapter 1, we copy the chapter title and we paste it onto our first page with the gutter margin on the left. Right, now this is important, this is super important, and it's the same with all of your boxes. If you're struggling and you're finding that when you enter text into the boxes, it moves up as well as down, then we click on that box. We go to the arrows here where it says spacing, and we go to anchor text, and we use the first one, which is move down only, not up and down, or not up. So we anchor that text box. When I add extra text to this line, more than that will fit on that one line. It will move down and not down and up. And let me give you an example of that. So I'm going to title this Navigation Sims. And just watch this as I carry on now. It will move down So it's remained in place. And I go to this box here. If I hadn't have anchored that, and go back to it, watch it carefully, the text moves up as well as down. So chapter title to always start at a certain point on every chapter and move down if it has to, or stay on that line. We don't want it going up and down because it sends everything out. Electricity. That's what my next chapter is going to be all about. So now I go back here, I copy the chapter number, that's from our first one. I go back to the second chapter we're working on and I paste. Now if I hadn't have anchored that, that text would have been up here and that chapter 1 would have been underneath this text. Okay, so we've got page 7 and the start of our new chapter. Right, now we start working with the text boxes. And we basically do the same again. We go to our first one, we copy, let's say, the first box, we go back to our chapter 2, oops, I just renamed that chapter 2, okay, and we put in a text box. We look at this gap between the title and the text. Depending on how you set yours up, it might be very different. So what I've done is, I've created a gap for mine, just a bar, I keep using this on all of my pages, and I'll copy it over to another page, and I'll keep this bar always while I'm doing this. Now all I've done is I've gone to Elements, clicked a box, and I've created the space that I want. So let's say, for instance, it's this size between each paragraph. Move that out the way a little bit, stretch it across. Doesn't matter where it is, I'll just give it a different color. Now I could move that box up until it clicks into place below that text box. You can see how it sort of clicks into place. Now all I do is I bring my box of text up here until that hits that. So that's my space there. Then all I've done is I move down with that box, I let go, and then I push it up until it hits like a magnet to the bottom of that box. And then I start my next one. But this will always give me the right space then, all the way through the book. Anyway, I'm not using that one. I'm using this one. Like I say, you can just move your text to how you want it, and then continue on like that if you wish, like I showed you in the first one, or you can set yourself up a little box. If I copy this box, go back to our first chapter, and paste it. If I move it in between these, you can see that I'm using this box, which I've made to fit the gaps that we created in the first one. So I don't have to mess about with numbers now, I can just set this box between each paragraph. Right, so we go back to this one, page 7. So I'll go back to our first one, Sims and electricity. And I've got it set at page 7. I'm keeping this up to date all the way through the book. And I'm ready to start adding new text into these places. Remember what I said to you in the first chapter when we were creating that? And that was get your text, whether it's Word document or some other Google Docs or straight into Grammarly or something else, make sure it's error-free. Because once it goes into these boxes, it can be difficult to change them after. It's not impossible, but as long as there's not too many errors, or it's a simple spelling mistake, is no problem. But if you've got to change a whole paragraph, you can send everything out, and that's a reason why we're doing one chapter at a time separately. And we can join them all up, and I'll be showing you how to do that shortly. We can join them all up at the end, but if we create the whole document, which could be 150 pages, say, and we have to take or alter a whole paragraph on one of the early pages, we've got to move all of the other text up so we've not left any gaps. Now doing that with 150 pages would be a nightmare. Doing it with half a dozen, it's not a problem at all. So it's best to keep each chapter individual if you can. Right, so we grab some text from our document and highlight all that. And highlighting it, all I'm doing is clicking the left mouse and dragging it, holding the mouse down, the left mouse down, and dragging it over the whole lot, right-clicking the mouse and pasting. And what I'll do, now that I've got that first box in, I will go to this here where it says spacing and the arrows, and I will check that my line spacing is at 1.4, just to be on the safe side, which it is. 1.4 is quite wide. And like I say, it could be adjusted if you want it nice and tight. You could tighten your line spacing up just by simply clicking on your box, going to line spacing and adjusting it from there, just dragging that bar. But I do like 1.4, and that's what I'm sticking to for my non-fiction. Right, okay, that's the first box. Now I want to put the second one in. Like I say, I could just move this up, say maybe get there where it says 0.125 or 0.57, or I could just move that out of the way a second. Use this little bar that I've created so that every paragraph is the same with regard to spacing. Drag that up until it clicks underneath the text box. So you can see the line of the text box is right on the line of this box, the spacer as we'll call it. Grab the next text box and move it up, holding the left mouse down until it hits that spacer. And I can move that out of the way. So I know that that spacing there between the two paragraphs is the same all the way through the book. And I'll grab some more text. Right, as you can see here, there's no room for any more text on that. So I'll go on to the next. I need to have at least 2 clear lines after a space. And really all I'm getting is a space. So we go down to the next page, and this time the gutter margin is on the right hand side. Gutter margin on the left for the chapter, title and start. Page number is 7. Header on this page is the book title, and it's page 8. So change whatever that number is to page 8, and we're ready to add some more text. I've done that rather quickly because you'll have no doubt got the hang of it by now. Spaces between things. I've got a larger space here at the bottom of this one here with the bullet points because I'm starting a little something different here. Space there. I'm not going to be able to get anything else in here, so that's fine for that. And we're ready for the next page. And this time the header has the chapter name. In my case, you could be the author name. You could have it all the other way around, but I've started this book in this way, so I'll continue. Navigation, Sims and Electricity is for this chapter title. Like I say, we don't have it on the chapter page at the top here. We only have it every other page with the gutter margin on the left. And with the gutter margin on the right, we have the book title. Like I say, you can do that any way you like. So we go down to page 3 and we add more text. And I've got a little space here. I'm just going to break all this up with the first image in this chapter for this non-fiction book. Okay, it's in the right place. It's touching the top of that box there. Just move that out of the way. It's touching the top of that box. I've got a big enough gap here. I'll just right click, center back, just behind these borders, these margins for now. Right, okay, on to the next page. We've got page 7, 8, 9, and 10. But you can see how quicker it is now. You can see how easier it gets the more you do. I've now filled all of these pages in, and that's the end of this chapter. So that's 2 chapters we've done. Right, this is important. Let's just say I copy some of this text here and paste it in here. And we finish this chapter with the gutter margin on the left. Well, we want to start the next chapter with the gutter margin on the left. So what do? Well, we have to add a page. Even though we've only short text here, to finish that page, we add another. So that gutter margin is on the right. Call that 7. Copy this. Paste. Call that 8. It might seem like a huge waste of paper to finish your chapter there and then skip a whole page and a half and 3/4 maybe before starting your new chapter. Which is why some people end up starting their next chapter, if they've got a whole page like that with nothing on it, sometimes they'll start their chapter on the left-hand side of the book, and just to save paper. But I don't think it matters. I don't think, me personally, I just have that blank and completely blank. So I've got 3/4 of a blank page there. I turn it over, and on that side of the page, it's blank. That side of the page starts my chapter, and that's the way I do it. If that's the way it turns out, then so be it. So yeah, if you've finished all your text and you've got your gutter margin on the left, then you're going to have to add another page, even if it's blank, so that your gutter margin is on the right, so that when you start your new chapter, your gutter margin is on the left. And it's that simple, really. Well, I hope it's that simple. Right, okay, so we've finished our second chapter. And we're 12 pages into the book. Now you just continue now. Continue all the way through, fill out all your chapters, and at the end of it all, you've got all your different chapters all in your folder, whether that's 10 or 20 chapters or whatever. We check our chapter 1, make sure there's none of this, none of these little artifacts, no borders, nothing that we don't need in the book. Yep, all clear. With file, just press save and it'll update that file, and we download it. We download it as a PDF print. We go to these buttons here, leave the crop mark and bleed alone, tick the flatten PDF. You could end up with faint lines on your page. So by flattening it, you've not got any issues. You just flatten everything on it. And sometimes text gets flattened, images get flattened, and everything's on a nice level. So click Flatten PDF. It says here, flattening your PDF can help ensure it prints properly. So 14 pages there is. Now you can use RGB, best for digital use, but I have an option here to be able to go with CMYK, best for professional printing. And that's a pro feature, a premium feature on Canva. But, you know, if it's there, I'll use it. If not, I've done books before. I've published books before, plenty of them, with just RGB, best for digital use, and had no issue whatsoever. But only because I've got the CMYK option, I'll use it. It's not always the best option, because sometimes when something's colour intense, like a children's book, sometimes those colours don't look quite right, don't look how I wanted them to look. So then I'll revert to best for digital printing if I don't like the colours. So CMYK for me, for this, and download. Once downloaded, open it, have a little look at it. This was our first one, remember? I'm really happy with it. So I hit the download button. Even though it's downloaded into my downloads, I like to download it again into a separate file. Right, I'll make sure it's titled Introduction, or I should really have that said as preface, which is the correct term. And chapter 1, save. We go to chapter 2, and this time I will make a duplicate of this. So I'll go to File, I'll go to Make a Copy, I will title it Chapter 3, and I will close it for now. File, Save to Folder, My Projects, and I will save. Right, okay, I'll close that now because we don't really need it. And I'll close chapter 1 because we're finished with that. I will carry on with chapter 2 by deleting all of these bits and pieces because I've got them all set up now ready on chapter 3. So all the borders can go from this. It only takes a minute. Right, that's all clear. And I go to Share, Download, PDF Print, Flatten PDF, and whichever one of these color settings you want to, or print settings you want to use or can use. Download, open it. Let's have a little look. If I scoot through, you can see how the broader border on the left, then on the right, then on the right, then on the left, and on the left and on the right. You can see how it's all coming together nicely. Download that, save it in the same file as the chapter 1. I shall simply call it chapter 2, save, and I'll close that. Now I have both files, chapter 1 and the preface, and chapter 2. So those two files now, those two PDFs, I need to merge. Now imagine that they're 10 or 20 chapters. I need to merge them all together into one book, into one PDF manuscript that I want to publish on KDP or Barnes & Noble or whatever. So I go to I Love PDF. I have the full product of that too. But you can use the free version to merge these together if your total files are less than 300 or 400 megabytes. So you can use the free version of this now. I'm not logged in. What I do is I look over here. Let me just accept some cookies. So many cookies, isn't there? Merge PDF. You see it here. Click on that. Select PDF files. I go to the folder with the two files in. I highlight both of them and I open them. Now they're both there, but they're both back to front. I've got the chapter 1 over this side and chapter 2 over this side. So all I do is I left click the mouse, hold it down and move them to how I want them. So that's both of the PDFs now in place. All I do then is merge. Now you can imagine if there's 10 or 20, like I say, chapters in here, and just make sure they're all in the right order by dragging them about. Merge, download, merge to PDF, and that's done. Open, and here are 20 pages, 2 chapters together. Let's have a little scroll through, make sure everything's in order. And that was the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2. From chapter 1 to chapter 2. Nice. Moves nicely across. Everything looks great. Wonderful. I'd love to see any finished products from any advice I've given on any video, really. So let me know if you have, and let me know if you've had any success. I'm sure you have. Or you will. Thank you.